Hello, I'm Peter McMillan from NT Shelter. Today you're watching another episode of Sharing the Couch. It's a series that NT Shelter has set up where we talk about people who are working in the housing and homelessness system or working closely with it, and hear some of their stories about the great work that they're doing in the sector. I'd like to acknowledge that again today we're broadcasting from Larrakia country in Darwin. I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging of the Larrakia people, and also to any other First Nations people who might be watching this episode, either in the Northern Territory or further afield. Welcome. If you're enjoying this series of Sharing the Couch, just please consider hitting the subscribe button and the like key so that more people get to see this video, and also to make sure that you don't miss out on future episodes that we broadcast. We've got a big schedule for 2023 coming up, so please do go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Today we have another fantastic person to have a conversation with. I'm really looking forward to this one. Elvis Martin is our guest today, and Elvis is a young Australian leader and advocate. He's currently the Deputy Chair of Red Cross Youth. He's a Principal Ambassador for the National Youth Commission, and he's Youth Advisor for Melbourne City Council. Elvis's dedication to social justice, compassion and equality has a big impact on those around him. He's a strong believer in the power of lived experience, and he bravely shares his own life journey through initiatives such as Are You OK Day, shifting perspectives, empowering others to share their own stories, and advocating for a culture that supports inclusion and mental well-being. Beyond his volunteer work with Australian Red Cross, Elvis is constantly engaging in the important conversations about time and driving change wherever he can. Elvis's passion is collaboration within the community to drive change through driving awareness and change for homelessness, mental health, domestic violence, suicide prevention, gender and sexual discrimination. Elvis is the youngest ever person to be appointed to the Victorian Government's LGBTIQ+ task force. He was selected as Australia's Youth Ambassador for the One Young World Summit in Manchester earlier this year, and gave the Ambassador in Action address, speaking on global mental health and government's expenditure on mental health around the world, and shared some leading causes of youth mental health and suicide. Elvis spoke at the Australian Housing and Urban Research Institute National Homelessness Conference in Canberra earlier this year on a panel conversation on youth homelessness. In November 2020, he told his personal story to the Royal Commission into Victoria's mental health system. He's passionate about sharing his lived experience and hopes his story encourages anyone going through a difficult time to reach out to their family, friends, or support services. A very warm welcome to you, Elvis Martin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. I would also like to acknowledge the traditional owners, and I'm joined from Nam, which is also known as Melbourne. And just one thing, I was a former national committee chairperson for Red Cross. My time at Red Cross was amazing. And now I work with other different organizations in either on boards or advisory boards, and so it's so good to chat to you. Thank you so much for having me on this interesting series, Sharing the Couch, and thank you so much for the work that you all do.
Thank you, Elvis. That's great. It's great to see you again, and it was good to catch up with you at that conference. I did hear you speak. It was a very powerful speech about your experiences with youth homelessness and your journey to housing security, and I guess also the things that you're doing as an ambassador for young people. And I guess I do want to start with that. I guess, you've just come back from Manchester from the One Young World Summit. I've had a bit of a look at it. It feels like I've missed out on the coolest gig going around. Can you tell me a bit about the experience? I mean, there must have been a lot of energy and thinking in new ideas. And Meghan Markle's also associated with it. Tell us about that.
Oh, it's an amazing organization. I'm privileged to be an ambassador for One Young World, and One Young World do a lot, and they really bring young leaders from around the world who are doing change work, sort of being a change agent in their country, corporates, governments. Meghan Markle have been a counselor for One Young World from 2014. And there are many Hollywood celebrities who are Hollywood, Bollywood, or many big celebrities, whether it's from a sporting side or movies and things like that, are involved in the space. But this year she was delivering a keynote where I was speaking as well this year, so which was amazing. It's great to hear. It's like so many people, so much passion in the room, over 2,000 attendees.
Wow,
And
2,000 attendees.
yes, around the world.
Wow.
Every country have a representative. Every single country have a representative. So it's a great platform, and it's an honor to be given a spot to speak, and it's an honor to given a spot to be an ambassador in action.
Fantastic.
So I really enjoyed my time there. I really enjoy getting to connect with other young people who are making change in different countries, and very innovatively. And
Absolutely.
I get to share things about and learn as well about what we are doing in Australia, but as well as learn about what they are doing. And I think in many ways, especially in Victoria, in mental health, we are doing quite a lot, which is, I feel really proud sharing that work of Victoria. And then understanding that mental health is something that's overlooked by government expenditures and things like that. And then talked about homelessness, then talk about equality and pride. I also talked about, the challenges of, gender, not having a safe space, and gender equality and things like that. Just sharing that ideas with so many people and connecting with them, learning what they are doing, keeping in touch. Definitely what's happening around the globe. It's definitely, I'm grateful to have that opportunity.
I think it's a wonderful opportunity. I do want to ask you a few things about it, but one thing I thought I'd mention first was something I read. I think you said that you saw a presentation. It was given by a Ukrainian person, and the Russian person even got up on his feet and applauded. Do you want to tell us about that? How that?
So what happened is that there was a flag, a refugee flag that was carried by a Ukrainian person, and that was the first flag that actually went on the stage and turned. And then a person who was standing next to me, I was not aware of that person is Ukrainian Russian when we start talking, and that person is like, started clapping loud, and then they told me how they feel about what's happening in Ukraine, and how sad they are, and how they feel being Russian, you know what I mean? And so that was very unique. That was like, wow, you know what I mean? That was just an amazing,
absolutely,
like it's a unity, you know what I mean? And it shows that people doesn't want war. It's leaders, and it's some leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious about, 2,000 people at this big forum, and you're speaking, and you've got those messages that you said before. What did people say to you? And also, do you feel that the issues you were talking about were those that others could relate to from their own countries?
100%. There's so many of them. The response that I got after my speech was very overwhelming, and the messages that I receive on my Instagram and LinkedIn, and continuously, like the support by following and sharing my work online on their platforms. So it was definitely, I felt, like that there was definitely a support for the work that I am doing and the importance of it, because I believe that people won't support if they are not passionate about the same thing, or if they are not concerned about the same things in their own home countries. And there are so many people from different nations. They are concerned about the things that I'm passionate about, which is homelessness, mental health, family and domestic violence, LGBTI community, or gender equality. And these are real issues, and these are issues in every single country. But it's about how do we address it, and how we do address as a united sort of a thing.
And what would you say would be the mood at a conference like that, in terms of whether there's a degree of optimism or pessimism, or what was the energy and the viewpoint in general around things like homelessness?
Oh, like definitely, it's like people want to make change. People are upset. People are angry, and people, especially corporate sector, and it's the only conference I can say this. I speak at many conferences, and it's the only conference where I have seen a lot of corporates do come with a willingness. We want to change. Tell us, how can we do it?
Yes,
All right.
that's good.
So yeah, that's. I'm not going to say that corporates in other conferences doesn't come with a willingness, but I have seen a lot of passion and enthusiasm that okay, we want to do something about it, and so a lot of corporates that I have met there, they are like, tell us, how can we change it, how can we make a difference? And I had some opinions for people experiencing homelessness, or people experiencing mental health, or women and children experiencing family violence and domestic violence. How corporates can help those individuals is by creating jobs, by creating flexible jobs. So creating a job is one thing, by creating a flexible job is another thing. We need to understand that these people who go through a lot of challenges in their life, it's not easy for them to just go through that traumatic, disadvantage period and quickly go to a full-time job and act like normal, right? Here, nothing happened. That doesn't work like that. So to create employment opportunities for people who go through challenges, the employer need to be a little bit understanding and flexible, and have a peer support model sort of a thing that can help those individuals. So there is a lot that corporates can do. And then the other thing that corporates can do is, like, one of my main, another thing that I speak often at corporate places is CSR, corporate social responsibility. And for example, Peter, and this I said to you on the phone as well before last week, and then I was pretty frustrated after your presentation in Canberra. The presentation was amazing, but the stats were frustrating. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you guys do a lot of work, and this is a work that is much needed, but there is not enough funding behind it. And when there is no funding, you guys can do to a point, and there will be an end point to it, because everything, you can't run all the services that you can perfectly run, and what those people deserve, you can't do it because you don't have enough money or enough resources to run that.
I think it's interesting, the number of points you make about corporates and CSR as well, because I get the sense too that most people, most organisations want to see some change, but they don't quite know what they can do or how to get involved in the conversation. And in terms of things like street homelessness, businesses know that they prefer not to have rough sleeping in Sydney, in the CBD areas, but what can they do? And there are practical things that they can do. And I guess I just wanted to turn our attention to that, Elvis, because you are a person who has had lived experience of homelessness, of street homelessness in Docklands for a few months, and couch surfing. Now, so do you want to take us back to that time? Because we don't need to go into all the details, but there was a period that was difficult, must have been difficult in your life, that period of homelessness, and I guess also navigating the mental health system as well.
Yeah, sure, Peter. And I think homelessness is seen as an issue of people who use drugs, right? That's the stereotype of people who use drugs are people who experience homelessness. Let me tell you, I have never used substance in my life, but I have experienced homelessness. And it's a phase. Homelessness, like you hear this, like, oh, homeless people, this term you hear a lot, homeless people. There's no such thing as a homeless people. Homelessness is an experience. It's a phase one go through, and anyone can go through that. I grown up in quite a supported, sound family, but I experienced homelessness.
Yeah.
So people have to understand that anyone can experience homelessness. Homelessness is not just for people who experience like you who use substance and things like that. So like I had my challenges, and as an international student, navigating the system was very difficult. And as an international student, when I had some conflicts with my family and challenges with coming out, I found myself experiencing homelessness, rough sleeping, and it was difficult. It was not easy, and people are like, oh, why don't you go and get a job? Like this is very common term that is used. You might have heard this a lot
Yeah.
by many
Yeah.
people. uh, it's not easy. It's not easy to like. There was a time where I was speaking and in one of the corporate place, and one of the person after my speech, they came and they said, "Oh, thank you for bringing the stats to the attention, but they don't want to, like, they can go and get the job. They are quite lazy people and things like that." I told that person that I don't think they are lazy. Point one, and point two, you think that they should go and get a job. How about I just go and get some people experiencing homelessness? Will you give them a job? You are an employer. Will you give them a job? He did not have anything to say.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that people who are experiencing homelessness and sleeping rough and who don't have anything, who's going to give them jobs? And at the same time, can they maintain it?
Yeah.
And it's because they can't maintain it, because they are already going through a lot of challenges in life. So they need that extra support now to get back on track and not go through the cycle of homelessness.
Yes.
And when in my case, the system was so broken, as because I was an international student back then, that I fall through the gaps, you can say, but I got myself out of it without any support.
Right.
And,
Right.
and because to go and access, if you're feeling as an international student, if you're feeling suicidal and want to go to an emergency, still to date, you need to have $675 in your account, because you have to pay the admission fee into the emergency, because students doesn't have Medicare. They have private insurance, which they can claim that 675, 80% of 675 later, but now first they have to pay for it.
Yeah, it makes it hard, doesn't it? It makes it very difficult. And especially when you're in that, I guess, situation where you may have multiple needs, you might be having challenges with mental health or physical health. And I think it's absolutely true what you say, in the sense of people's stereotypes about what homelessness is. And, you know, I think a lot of people have in their mind an image of what a homeless person looks like to them, whereas you say there are people who experience homelessness from a number of different facets of life, including, as we're seeing, you know, nationally, a lot more people who are experiencing homeless who never in their wildest dreams would ever have thought they would be in that situation. So it can happen to anyone, and it does happen to a lot of people, doesn't it?
It's right, and there's one thing about as I mentioned, that it's people are like, as you, only substance users are the people who go through homelessness. It can be anyone, right? It can happen to anyone. And when the system, so my case was complex, Peter. You know, it had family violence into it, mental health, domestic violence. There was a lot of issues. And when all the needs are not met or support this person for all the issues, then they are going to fall apart eventually, you know what I mean, because of the broken system. And I think there's one thing very common in the sector, or no, I wouldn't say sector, but in the system, is if you don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, right? So family violence and young people now, Melbourne City Mission in Victoria, I'm not sure about other states, but in Victoria, Melbourne City Mission is pushing, and Safe and Equal, which is a peak body that is pushing a lot for children and homelessness, sorry, family violence and homelessness and things like that from this angle. Before that, I don't know about other states, I don't know about NT, but over here, we never talked about family violence and homelessness. We never talked about family violence and mental health.
Yeah.
but they are interconnected. If someone is experiencing family violence, they are experiencing mental health, depression and anxiety and every whatnot. And then when they escape family violence, then they are experiencing homelessness.
Mm. Absolutely, it's connected. There are intersections between all of those elements, as you say. When you were experiencing homelessness, Elvis, what were the kind of supports that you would have liked to have received that weren't available or you weren't aware about at the time?
One, there was no support. Literally, international students does not have a support from organizations that provide support to local. I am like, I'm not sure how it works in NT. In Victoria, many non-for-profit organizations does not have support because they don't have Medicare, and that's where it gets. They don't have Medicare. They don't have Centrelink, so that's where it gets really complicated for the organizations here to support. And organizations doesn't get specific international student funding for these organizations to help them. I would have appreciated a social worker, a support worker, and someone who can just help me navigate the system, someone who can just help me guide what is available, what's not available. Because at the age of 17, it was too much for me.
Yeah.
It was.
And well, did you see any outreach workers coming out, or you didn't have that where you were?
Yeah,
Okay.
and not at the place where I was sleeping, but at the same time, back then, Peter, it was not much. Now you see a lot of outreach happening, and on the streets, I see a lot of outreach workers. But back then, it was not like that.
I'd also like to explore another area which I think you're, maybe you can tell us a bit about, which is for those people who identify with the LGBTIQ plus community, the fact that a number of services that are available are those faith-based organisations, not necessarily what people who identify with those communities are looking for in terms of being comfortable with the services. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, it is. It's a very complicated sort of area. I know, because as you mentioned, that a lot of big organizations that do provide support in this area are, all of them are religious. Like, I can counting, it's like 4 or 5 of them, and they are very known for religion or related to church, and they are known for church. As a person of like LGBTI community, I would feel more comfortable when there are services, when mainstream organizations are a bit inclusive, and that's why in Victoria we have a rainbow tick accreditation. So basically, rainbow tick accreditation make sure that there is visibility in the organization, and then there's rainbow flags and things that says it's a safe space. And that's why I advocate for mainstream organizations to be more inclusive to support. There's a other part to it, Peter. Many people who are part of LGBTI community and who are in closet, sometimes they don't feel comfortable to go to LGBTI organizations because they don't want to be seen. They don't want to be, they don't want to be seen or outed or things like that. Though those organizations are very safe, but when you are in the closet, you struggle to accept, that okay, your information will be protected. But that's why the mainstream organization. So that's one end of it. The other end is religious organizations running this. So it's just then you are left with only few of the organizations that can provide you support and things like that. In my case, I struggled to come out to my worker, and then when I came out, my support worker was quite friendly and supportive, and I love the organization. It's Co-Health in Victoria, and it's important for mainstream organizations to have like flags and banners and things like that that says it's a safe space for all. So
Sure.
that actually would have made a difference in my life. I would have felt comfortable going to a service and say, okay, I can talk about it, rather than waiting and really hoping for to know that whether my caseworker is homophobic or not.
Sure. it sounds like there's definitely some gaps in the service system, as you point out, for international students and also for people who identify in the LGBTIQ plus community. They're really interesting observations, and important that we listen to those insights. I guess one of the things I'm curious about is your passion for the things that I read out of the introduction. There's a lot of the work you do in advocacy, and I believe you had a really good conversation with Are You OK as well, and which involved you doing some work with them and really, I guess, inspired you to find out your calling and what you want to do in your life. Are you able to run us through that?
So the reason I joined IUOK when they asked me if I want to be an ambassador is because a conversation have changed my life. When I was in hospital, I was not able to relate with nurses, counselors, and psychologists and psychiatrists. They were talking about things that doesn't make sense to me. It was very high level, like, oh, you have major depression. If you take antidepressant, the chemicals in your brain, and the conversation, I was just not able to relate. There was a nurse, a casual nurse, after one of my attempts. I was in emergency ward. From a normal ward, they transferred me to emergency, and I was there, and she was sitting, and she had a very deep conversation with me, and it felt like a human being is talking to me, rather than I'm talking to robots that just talks about chemical in my brain. And so she shared about her child. She talked about how her child is part of the community, and they are from a very strong Catholic religion backed family, and the challenges and things like that. But she said, you will find your family, you will find people here. That made me, like, that conversation helped me, really move on. And she's like, don't try to take your life, you have tried so many times. That's how I choose a purpose of life, that I will advocate for people who go through similar things as what I have been through, and dedicate and give my time and my life to the community.
Wonderful, Elvis, and that was obviously such an impactful conversation for you. And I guess there's some firsts in some of the things that you've done. And I know with City of Melbourne Council, you were the first ever youth homelessness advisor, which is a remarkable achievement. So, what did you do there with your work at Melbourne City Council? Yeah,
City Council, I was given an opportunity to join Homelessness Advisory Council, and I was the first ever young person to join the committee, where we advise on issues that are related to homelessness and what's happening in the city and things like that. And that committee was chaired by the councillor, who hold the portfolio of people and communities. So it was a great opportunity for me to really bring the voices of young people, multicultural communities, and LGBTI communities, and really highlight that how it might be different, how the homelessness might look different, and why government need to fund different services to provide that different specific support to this cohorts. And also the other thing for me was to have Victoria Police on that committee. That was one of my goals, and I'm proud to say this, Peter, that I was successful to make that happen.
That's terrific.
And because what I believe is that police need to be involved in these conversations. They need to understand what people actually go through. Force is not good, and it's never going to fix any problem or any issue. Like, not every person experiencing homelessness is criminal.
So I couldn't agree with you more on that. And I think they're conversations that we have up here a lot as well, and we get some very good engagement with the police. And I think a lot of them do understand that a welfare intervention is as important, or if not more important, than a law enforcement intervention as well. It's extremely, extremely true. Well said. And so I guess in terms of local government, what do you see as the role of local government in helping to tackle our homelessness problems in Australia? What were they interested in doing, council? What can they do in local government?
So see, local governments have a big role to play, and not as Peter. I'm not sure if you. I don't know how things are in NT, but if I can talk from Victorian perspective on New South Wales, because I have communicated and I have spoken many times in New South Wales to different councils. Only the capital councils show a bit of interest in homelessness. Many other councils, local councils, doesn't really spend any money on homelessness or have any focus on homelessness. But do people in their municipalities experience homelessness? Yes, they do, but the councils doesn't have any focus. I think local councils can play a big role in resolving, in reducing homelessness. One thing that 2 years ago local councils did was lobbied for a national plan, right? And that is national strategy for ending homelessness. And that is really important. But at the same time, how are you allocating your budget every year? Because every year councils have their budget, and how are you allocating, how are you supporting local organizations that is tackling homelessness? And one, we need more housing, there is no doubt about it. Two, creating affordable housing, and how are you investing in that? Second, are you supporting organizations who are working in your municipalities to solve, to reduce homelessness, right? And most of the time, services are, this is at least my experience, that councils spend money on things like events and concerts and things like that that really bring people around, but not much happens in local councils when it comes to homelessness. I have knocked so many doors, Peter. I have visited so many councils in Victoria, spoke to the mayors of the council and bring this attention, and I said, this is important. And some of them, all of them, act to listen. Some of them act on it, right? And all of them is like, oh, this is serious. But their record, they have never done anything. And after that meeting, they are not going to do anything as well, you know. So there's not that commitment or passion. There are some who does that, and there are some who don't know how to do it. And the people who don't know how to do it, and the councils that don't know how to do it, then they need to connect with local organizations that are working in the space. They need to connect with big bodies in the states, I guess, if that's what they want to, and seek their advice how that particular council can make a difference in homelessness. It's a serious issue. It's a serious, and it is going to affect our future. It's going to affect Australia's future if homelessness is not reduced. So it is very important that local councils in their yearly budget, this is my advocacy, that is like minimum 10% of their budget, yearly budget, should go in resolving homelessness.
That's certainly got a role to play. There's no doubt about that. And also, we won't be able to get through all of the, I mean, there's an incredible list of boards and committees that you've been involved in or are still involved in. We won't be able to get through all of them, but needless to say to our viewers that you do an enormous amount of work, advocacy, and social change and social justice. You are doing, you have done at least some work with Info Exchange with the Ask Izzy project. In the Northern Territory, we don't have Ask Izzy. We've got a similar website-based resource that we use for homelessness services. But do you want to tell us a bit about your work and I guess how you were able to add some value to that important project at Ask Izzy?
Peter, first thing, you need Ask Izzy in NT. I love Ask Izzy, and I'm sure the other website that you guys have is amazing and great and doing an amazing job, but you guys need Ask Izzy there. Ask Izzy is one of my favorite platform, because I have been involved in Ask Izzy from the start of it, right? And then I was involved in the initial consultations of Ask Izzy, and then I've joined the product advisory, so I joined from the start of the product advisory committee. And Ask Izzy is now young people use technology when they are like, even people experiencing homelessness, a lot of them have access to phone or internet somehow, and they prefer to access it that way rather than traditionally going by reading books, directories, and things like that, way to access supports and services. So having a platform like that that can actually guide you about where are the services, where can you go to access housing and homelessness related, or if you need a bed tonight, which organizations are around your area, and how many kilometers it is, how can you walk there, can you take a tram, can you take a bus, can you take a train. And then we also add a logo, if it's a safe space, which is a LGBTI logo, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander logo underneath it, if they have specific services to support Indigenous communities. So this makes it much easier, cleaner, and it's like, okay, the person have to just type, I need housing, I need a bed to sleep, I need money, I am looking to make friends, I need to something what's going on in the community. So that there is a lot. And I have always been a fan of this app. Maybe I'm being biased here because I'm involved in it, but I love it. And it's a platform that a lot of young people I have met through different consultations, focus groups, or events. They all said that they find it very helpful.
That's excellent. And I think, we like to sometimes do things our way in the territory as well, a little bit different maybe, but a lot of the things you spoke about, we're absolutely doing on our website. But I'll tell you what, I'll make a promise. We'll check out Ask Izzy, and if we can, if there's a way we can meet or beat it, then fantastic. But the important thing is that we get the services and information to people in need, whether it's, like you say, clothing, money, counselling, a bed for tonight or next week. So I think it's really important, that work.
So I would love to check out the website that you guys have, and I'm more than happy to. Is it run by NT Shelters, or is it run by?
Yeah, it is. It is run by. It has been run by us for a while. But I think we always want to see if we can do things better, and it'd be great to look at Ask Izzy and see the functionality and that Ask Izzy offers, and see if we can do the same. I guess we want to make sure, with so much homelessness in the territory, that we have options and solutions where they're available, that in a very accessible way. So maybe we could talk about that offline a little bit more. But I did want to talk also about Youth Development Australia, because you're an ambassador for them, national ambassador, I think. Do you want to tell us a bit about what that work involves and what a typical day might look like for you now?
As a principal ambassador, that's a proper role, sort of a thing, and where I basically am responsible for partnerships and engagement and stakeholder management, and I'm also a spokesperson for diversity and inclusion for Youth Development Australia. So it's for me, it's like ensuring that whatever we do, there is gender equality. Whatever we do, there is representation from all the diverse communities. Our First Nation people are involved. The most important thing for me, for obvious reasons, is lived experience is the front and center of everything we do. So at Youth Development Australia, we host a summit biannually, and that is a summit for Youth Future Summit that brings young people from around Australia, that talks about anything that is affecting young people, from climate change to workplace safety, from work rights to housing, from homelessness, from mental health, LGBTI rights. But we also run, and we are the first body in, I think, last 22 years to run this, and that is the National Youth Mental Health Conference, National Youth Homelessness Conference. So when you see, Peter, like homelessness, and you and me were there in Canberra as well, youth was the only one panel, you know what I mean? And this Youth Homelessness Conference is a National Youth Homelessness Conference, it's just about young people and children, and how a lot of organizations, so it's been happening for started in 2019. It's been happening for a while, but all the services and organizations come together, and then it's in, I think the next one, I'm part of the steering committee for that one this year. So it's going to be in person next year, I believe, or hybrid.
Terrific. And in terms of the young people you speak to and hear from, what are they generally saying about their aspirations for housing? What are their experiences? What do they want when it comes to housing?
The thing is that, Peter, and I'm sure it is same in NT, owning a house is a dream that people don't even want to dream, because it's just an impossible dream. Like I can never see myself owning, like, it's just too expensive. It's just unaffordable. And so no one is thinking of, like, now, for a lot of young people, if they are experiencing any sort of a personal hardships and challenges, even having a private rental is a dream, because affording private rental in Melbourne, where I am, it's quite expensive. And a lot of young people say that their 80% of their income goes to their rent, or 75% of their income goes to the rent, 85% of, and I'm one of them, where you put your majority of your income into rent. And that's, if we don't fix, if we don't create more affordable housing now, if we don't create more affordable and schemes that can help young people afford own homes and things like that, then we are in deep trouble.
There seems to be a fair bit of focus, I think at the national level, at least, around solutions to Australia's affordability problems and getting more home ownership as well. And of course, the current government's talking about building more social and affordable homes, which is very good news. That will take some time to come online. I think I just couldn't help but think that when I heard people saying, look, the best thing we can do to help help people struggling in the housing market is to help them buy a home, that just doesn't make sense for a lot of people, yeah. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of conversation, Elvis, at the political level, national level, around what we can do to help struggling renters at the moment. Because I know a lot of people who like mobility as well. They might work in New South Wales for a few years and they might want to go back to WA or something like that. They don't necessarily want to buy their forever home and stay there forever, or they can't see themselves being able to afford to pay off the mortgage, So do you think maybe we're still stuck in this great Australian dream, like you said, that where people think home ownership with that white picket fence out the front, that's like a 1950s thinking, isn't it?
The thing is that, Peter, like, I'm sorry for my language, but that was the dumbest comment made by that person, that, oh, just buy a home, right? And that's like, I don't know how one can even say that, right? And hold that sort of a position and say that. And it is like there is a national focus of affordability housing and things like that, but you also need to see what happened with NRS, which is a national rental affordability scheme, and how it was removed, and the impact of it. To be honest, Peter, like, I have experienced the impact of it, and then when you hear back and say, hey, your house is not part of NRS anymore, and it's transitioning, and the NRS, the federal government is ending the NRS. When Turnbull was in power, that was announced that it's going to end, and when Scott Morrison was in power as the prime minister, then that's where it actually ended. And we need to bring back national rental affordability scheme for low income earners. Then we also, first you need to have that scheme so that people are saving up some money. You can't just expect people to go and buy, when especially people who are experiencing homelessness, mental health, family violence, and refugees and asylum seekers who experience a lot of challenges and trauma. And from homelessness, you expect them to go and buy houses. It's the dumbest thing one can say. And you need to create a space for them to gradually.
I think it's fair to say, for a lot of people who do aspire to own a home, there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people own homes and want to own their own home. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it is an important source of your wealth and long-term well-being by having a home. But I think the point is that there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of people overseas that don't have their own home, and it doesn't have to be the only solution. But I think we all need a roof over our head, don't we, that we can afford.
That's right. And yes, and ownership is not everyone is dreaming for ownership. A lot of young people definitely not these days. But affordability, housing affordability, we need more houses. And I think the entire sector have screamed their lungs out by now that we need more housing. I am so happy that the federal government have announced that they're going to build 1 million houses in a decade. I definitely welcome that announcement, but is it enough? I don't think so. And
Elvis, one last question I would like to ask is that, out, I guess, of some adversity and tough times when you were in your teenage years as an international student, you've got through that, you found a passion, and you found something where you can really make a difference, and you've gone ahead. I tell you what, you've gone ahead in leaps and bounds and done it, and all power to you. I guess one of the things that I see at the moment is when people work in the space of housing and homelessness, it can be a very difficult space, especially if the numbers of people are waiting for housing are growing, or if there are other people with complex needs whose needs aren't getting met. And we've also got the problem in the Northern Territory of a lot of, I guess, antisocial behaviour and youth crime that we're dealing with as well. And sometimes that gets mixed up with the issues around homelessness. What would you say to young people like yourself who want to make a career in social services and human services, who are passionate about what they're doing, but they're just maybe a little bit worn out, a little bit tired from life after COVID, and wondering, how can we keep ourselves okay, and how can we get through what's a very difficult time and still keep that hope and that belief that you can make a difference? What would you have to say about that?
I would definitely, I definitely, first I want to start by saying that don't lose hope. The work that you do is really important. Your lived experience and your stories are making difference and will make difference. So you are much needed in the sector. Without you, the sector won't be able to deliver the good services that it deliver, and the sector will never improve without your support. Advocate. One thing I always say to young people who are doing advocacy and or want to have a career in the sector is like, definitely advocate for paid work. You know what I mean? And I think it's also, I definitely want to ask organizations who are listening to this that please create jobs for people with lived experience. It's really important. They do bring expertise, they do bring experience. They might not bring 10 years of study, but their experience is more than 10 years of study, and the insights that they learn from that experience that they can, and Peter, you might have seen that by connecting with many people from your services, is like a lot of advocates or lived experience advocates, they bring a lot of compassion, and they understand because they have been there. They know how it feels. They know how what people are going through, and you do need compassionate and you do need support workers and things like that who understand the space. So don't lose hopes. There is a lot happening. The sector is changing. The sector is creating slowly, especially in Victoria. We are seeing organizations creating jobs for lived experience people as peer support workers or things like that. So I just want to say you're much needed, and don't go anywhere.
Elvis, that's great inspiration for people watching on. Thank you so much for your time. And I'd like to, I guess, congratulate you on the amazing advocacy that you've done and the recognition you've had by being selected as that one Young World Ambassador for Australia. And I know it was a big deal. I saw the Channel 7 cameras over in the UK in Manchester, and SBS did a nice write-up for anybody who might want to check that out. So thank you for sharing your story and I guess your bravery in coming forward and telling about your experience. It's really important, as you say, that people can understand through the lens of people with lived experience, and for having the courage to do that, we all benefit. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you so much for everything you do and your organization do in Northern Territory. And I think after hearing from you in Canberra, I really hope that there's more support to your organization and the work you guys do, because it's much needed and important.
Thank you, Elvis. Thank you so much. And you've been watching Elvis Martin on Sharing the Couch, episode 12 of Sharing the Couch. We're going to have a pause that concludes season 1 of Sharing the Couch. We're going to be back in 2023 with a whole new season. We've got some recording already started for that, and we're really looking forward to bringing you more of these stories such as Elvis's next year. I'd like, once again, to thank Elvis for his story today. I hope you agree that it was absolutely remarkable and really refreshing to hear from someone who's got ideas and solutions and that passion to continue the conversation. So thank you for watching, and we will see you in 2023.